die Offensive der islamistischen HTS in Nordsyrien und der drohende Putsch in Georgien. Beide Ereignisse scheinen den Westen und speziell die USA wieder geopolitisch ins Oberwasser zu führen. Russland und seine Verbündeten wurden im Nahen Osten hingegen kalt erwischt. Und das nicht einmal 2 Wochen nachdem Russland den Westen mit der Hyperschall-Mittelstreckenrakete Oreschnik vor weiteren Abenteuern abschrecken wollte. Man könnte titeln: Das Imperium schlägt zurück. Hältst du das für eine passende Beschreibung? Haben die USA wieder die Initiative im geopolitischen Spiel? Hat Russland sich überrumpeln lassen?
Well, first of all, I think that's not an appropriate, so that implies that the U.S. has the upper hand. What we're seeing taking place in the Middle East is an act of desperation by Israel and its allies, recognizing the dire situation that Israel is confronted with. Let's put this in perspective. In the lead up to this offensive, Israel entered into a ceasefire agreement with Hisbollah. This is not a ceasefire agreement that was gained because of Israeli military dominance, but because Israel was no longer able to sustain the campaign in southern Lebanon. They took advantage of the fact that Hisbollah, which has transitioned from a resistance group to a political party, that Hisbollah was under pressure from within Lebanon to bring about a ceasefire. Hisbollah is responsible for the Lebanese nation as a political party, as part of the government, and the Lebanese nation was suffering. And there was a push for a termination of this conflict, so Hisbollah agreed to a ceasefire, but this was a ceasefire that Israel desperately needed, that the military told Netanyahu, we can't continue doing what we're doing in Lebanon. It's not working. We're not being successful. We need to bring an end to this fighting. And so they did. At that juncture, because again, we're looking at Israel, in an act of desperation, Israel made a determination that with Hezbollah sidelined because of a ceasefire, with Iran hesitating to strike Israel, True Promise 3 has been something Iran has been saying it was going to do, and now it said we're not. We're going to wait for the Trump administration. Maybe people in the Israeli government might have perceived that as a sign of weakness. The Syrian government lulled into a false sense of security by the Astana agreements, along with Russia. The Israelis turned to their Turkish allies, and notice what I'm saying here: they're Turkish allies. People might have thought that Turkey was opposed to Israel, given the rhetoric of President Erdogan about the genocidal activities, the severance of diplomatic ties, etc. But the reality is Turkey and Israel have been, are, and will always be strategic allies. Israeli intelligence and Turkish intelligence work hand in glove, and Erdogan never turned off the economic lifeline to Turkey. Turkish ships continue to, debark in Israeli ports. Azeri oil continues to flow to Israel through Turkish pipelines. This was something that Israel wanted. The offensive that was carried out was actually planned to take place in March of next year. It was an offensive that was being prepared by Turkey together with the United States, with Ukraine, and with Israel. I believe it was to coincide with a Ukrainian counteroffensive that the Ukrainians have been speaking of. So to support that by opening up what would be a second front, one that would cause a diversion of Russian resources. But the Israeli ceasefire and the sense of panic on the part of Israel, Israel was able to get Turkey to push the offensive forward, and the offensive took place. It's an act of desperation. It's not the empire strikes back. It's the empire is in a panic. And yes, they had success. I think they've reached their high water mark. I think everybody involved has recovered. Iran is sending thousands of its Iraqi paramilitary proxies. The Syrian army is mobilized, remobilized. It's sent to its best divisions, the 4th Armored and the Tiger Force. In response, Hezbollah is dispatching troops, even though it's still engaged in conflict with Israel. And the Russian Air Force has been working overtime, inflicting horrific losses on the Al-Qaeda-linked terrorists who carried out this attack. So I can't see this as the Empire Strikes Back. I certainly wouldn't think that anybody involved in this offensive has the upper hand. The United States is confused. They don't know what they want. One minute they speak of respecting Syrian sovereignty. The next minute they speak of Bashar al-Assad having blood on his hands. Now they're bombing Syrian positions inside Syria because they're desperate. They're panicked. It didn't work out the way it was supposed to work out. And Turkey now has been caught out. It had visions of being this regional superpower, but in order to be a regional superpower, you need to be respected. And right now, nobody respects Turkey. Turkey's reviled in every major capital in the region because they can't be trusted. And Turkey will not recover from this betrayal of Russia, this betrayal of Syria, this betrayal of Iran, all of whom worked with Turkey through the Astana process to bring about the cessation of combat in Idlib. And Turkey has stabbed everybody in the back. So it's a disaster, actually, for the West. Georgia, talk about another Western failure. Georgia Dream will go down in history as one of the most strategic thinking political movements ever. Knowing that the West was seeking to implement a Maidan-like coup d'etat to seize power in Georgia, to impose Western-backed government on Georgia that would lead to a second front against Russia. Georgia Dream has outflanked this movement at every step. They introduced a Foreign Agent Registration Act over a year ago, and then withdrew it once they identified all the parties that objected. It was an intelligence gathering operation. They then regrouped. They made sure they had the numbers. They made sure that all of their supporters were locked in for the long ride, that they had the ability to override a veto from the pro-West president. And then they put the law back out there. And they went step by step, following every constitutionally mandated legal process. Read once, read twice, read 30 times in Parliament, voted, passed, vetoed, overridden. It is now law. And this is a law that strips away the ability of the United States and the European Union to fund political opposition groups in Georgia. And now we had an election. Georgia Dream wasn't supposed to win. But they won handily. There is no corruption. Nobody says nobody can prove there's corruption. Many people say there was, but they have no evidence. And now we see the European Union, the United States, bankrolling a Maidan 2.0 in Tbilisi, and it's failing. It's failing miserably. And the Georgian president has come out in a desperate attempt to retain relevance, says she won't leave because the Georgian parliament is unlawful and illegitimate, but tough for her because the Georgian Supreme Court came back and said, nope, there's nothing wrong with the election. It's good. Parliament stands. You're out. And she will be out. She says she's going to stay. I can guarantee you that she will not be in the presidential palace come 29 December. Georgian Dream has their act together. They are prepared. Look at the genius of their maneuvering. The European Union withholds $100 million. Well, that's 100 million euros. That's 100 million euros that the political opposition parties desperately need. The Georgian government doesn't need this money. And so they're starving their own parties. They alienate the Georgian military by having the United States withdraw its strategic support. And now the Georgian Dream has come and said, we're gonna hold off for 4 years on this European Union membership drive. We're not going to do it for 4 years. And not only that, we're not taking any of your money. So you have no strings on us. It's an absolute disaster for the European Union because it shows that it exposes who they really are and what they really are, especially when it comes to Russia and the near abroad. They are anti-Russian, and they aren't pro-democracy. They're pro, coup d'état, pro-violence, pro-chaos. Georgian Dream has done the Georgian people a huge favor. One only has to look at Ukraine and see what the future of Georgia would be should they choose the path of violence. So the empire strikes back. I'd call it the empire stumbles and falls, and Russia's stomping their face in the mud. There's nothing here that's bad for Russia. Nothing here that's bad for Russia. The embarrassment in the Middle East is over. The situation is stabilized, and now Russia is working together with its regional allies to resolve the situation to the detriment of Turkey, the United States, and Israel, who will come out of this looking very bad. In Georgia, what it's doing is guaranteeing that in the next 4 to 5 years, Georgia leaves the Western orbit and becomes part of the Russian orbit. So it's a huge victory for Russia, even if it's not a victory Russia was looking for. It's a victory that was handed to Russia by the incompetence of the West.
Lass uns über die HTS-Offensive in Nordsyrien sprechen. Den Islamisten ist ein überraschender Vorstoß in Richtung Aleppo gelungen. Es scheint, dass sie ihre Offensive in Richtung Hama und Homs fortsetzen wollen. Damit würde der syrische Staat aufgespalten und die Regierung von Präsident Bashar al-Assad den Zugang zum Mittelmeer verlieren. Wie bewertest du die Aussichten der HTS-Offensive? Wie gut sind sie ausgerüstet? Welche Waffen haben sie? Versorgt der Westen sie mit Aufklärungsdaten?
Well, there's no doubt that HTS has been preparing for this for some time. As I said, this was an offensive that was supposed to take place in March of next year. They've received equipment from Turkey. Ukrainian forces have come in and trained them on modern drone operations. You see the rebels making very effective use of first-person view suicide drones. This is a very capable force. But their success is dependent on surprise, and the surprise is over. And now we're going to find out that they cannot fight and sustain high-intensity conflict, that they can't absorb the casualties they're absorbing. Russia is in the process of destroying their logistics and their command and control, striking targets in Idlib that is making it impossible for them to sustain this. Soon you'll see these forces wither on the front as they run out of equipment, run out of manpower, and there's nobody to replace them, and they'll be compelled to retreat, and they will ultimately be destroyed. That's it. The Syrian army, people tend to forget that it had largely demobilized, and so what the Syrian army did is rather than bunker down and dig in and fight for Aleppo and destroying the city in the process, they withdrew, trying to preserve as much manpower as possible. They fell back. They've solidified their lines. Reinforcements have arrived, and I view what HTS has done is, from an American perspective, is Pickett's charge in the Battle of Gettysburg. It's the high water mark. That's as far as you're going to get. You're going to make it to the wooden barricade. You raise the flag, wave the flag, and then a volley of rifle fire will gun you down. A bayonet charge will push you back, and that's as far as you're getting. From now on, it will be retreat, retreat, retreat. And that's the reality of it. They don't have heavy forces. They're not able to sustain this. They don't have an air force. And Russia does, and Russia is having a field day right now in the skies over Syria. So, no, I'm not going to lose too much sleep over this. I think the Russians and the Syrians and the Iranians have this situation well in hand.
Für Russland und Iran ist die Offensive der HTS ein Rückschlag in ihrem Bemühen, Ordnung in die Verhältnisse im Nahen Osten zu bringen. Syrien ist dabei von zentraler Bedeutung, auch weil Russland dort seit 2015 über eine Luftbasis verfügt und Präsident al-Assad als enger Verbündeter Russlands gilt. Aber auch für den Iran ist die Existenz des syrischen Staates von existenzieller Bedeutung. Sowohl Moskau als auch Teheran und Peking sicherten al-Assad ihre Unterstützung zu. Wie werden Russland und Iran nun reagieren? Wird Iran militärisch intervenieren?
Well, we know the answer. Russia's reacting by letting loose its air force. It's in the process of destroying the enemy. You know, airplanes, there's a reality of how many airplanes you have, how many sorties you can fly a day, how many bombs you have on hand. Russia's sending in new bombs, and they have sufficient fuel and pilots and aircraft, and they're just going to keep flying and killing everything. The Iranians have already sent troops. They've sent their own special forces. They've sent leadership, and they're sending tens of thousands of Iraqi proxies. The Shia popular militia units have already entered 30,000 strong. Have entered Syria. So, we know how they've responded. People tend to forget that the reason why there was stability, it was because of the Astana Agreement. But the Astana Agreement, created a reality called Idlib, which was a cancer. In many ways, what's happened here has been liberating. Just like with Russia in the Donbass, as long as you had Minsk in play and people were pretending to go with Minsk, the Minsk Agreement, you had this cancer, which was this unresolved situation in the Donbass. But now, people would say, well, Russia was put into a corner. Well, Russia's solved that problem. There is no more cancer in Donbass. Donbass is Russia. Russia solved that problem, and they're solving that problem now. Idlib will be no more. This has actually freed up Russia, Iran, and Syria to solve a problem that they couldn't solve because of political agreements. But because of the betrayal of Turkey, because of the brutality and surprise attack, the betrayal of HTS, it no longer can be said to have a right to exist, and Russia will destroy it along with Syria. They'll return Idlib to Syrian sovereign control, and it's going to be a great victory for Russia. So again, I just see this as actually an opportunity for Russia that it wouldn't have had Turkey continued to, at least on the surface, abide by the Astana agreements. But Turkey has violated it, so has HTS. Therefore, there's nothing to hold Russia back.
Während Russland die HTS-Kämpfer am Boden bombardiert, unterstützt die Türkei die HTS. Siehst du die Gefahr eines potenziellen Konflikts zwischen Russland und der Türkei? Und wenn sich die diplomatischen Beziehungen zwischen der Türkei und Russland weiter verschlechtern, kann die Türkei dann noch den BRICS beitreten?
Well, Turkey tried to join BRICS this last go-round and didn't make it because clearly people within the BRICS voting bloc had decided that Turkey didn't meet the criteria. Turkey definitely doesn't meet the criteria right now. They've betrayed Russia. They stand for nothing. They're not a force of stabilization. They're a force of destabilization. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on Turkey to change its ways and to try and get itself back into the good graces of BRICS, which means Russia. So the pressure is all on Turkey, not on Russia. And I don't see Turkey committing suicide for Idlib. Idlib was a problem for Turkey as well. In the past, when Turkey had ambitions of overthrowing Bashar al-Assad, the Turkish military, actively intervened on the side of HTS. That led to a clash. If you remember the Russian aircraft bombing, Turkish military convoy killing, scores of Turkish soldiers. I don't think Turkey's itching for a fight with Russia right now. First of all, they have no moral high ground. They're in Syria illegally. They just, for them to come in now and militarily intervene, they've said, well, we didn't have it. This took us by surprise. We're as betrayed as you are. I don't see Turkey jumping in deeper. Turkey wants to get out of this situation, they want this situation resolved. They were hoping for a knockout blow. They were hoping that this surprise attack would deliver a knockout blow, create a de facto reality of a Turkish-controlled Aleppo province, and which, when combined with Idlib, would create enough territory for viable autonomy. That's not going to happen now. And I think Idlib will now be destroyed, marked for destruction. And Turkey will have to adjust to that. I think you're going to see Syria regain sovereign control over most, if not all, of its territory, to include the the area of Kurdish autonomy where American forces currently are. Trump has indicated that he wants to withdraw from Syria, and this will just give him more reason to withdraw. So, again, I think Turkey made a strategic mistake, and I see Russia, Iran, and Syria in the long term benefiting from this.
Unabhängigen Militärbeobachtern zufolge scheinen die Unterstützung für Syrien und der gleichzeitige Kampf in der Ukraine für Russland eine schwere Belastung darzustellen. Berichten zufolge hat die russische Drohnenaktivität in der Ukraine seit dem Beginn der HTS-Offensive deutlich abgenommen. Ist Russland nicht in der Lage, gleichzeitig Syrien zu stützen und die Lufthoheit in der Ukraine zu erhalten? War das womöglich der Plan Washingtons, Russland mit einem weiteren Stellvertreterkrieg zu beschäftigen, um die Ukraine zu entlasten?
There's no doubt in my mind that this was the plan of those who implemented this offensive, that Russia would be distracted and not able to dedicate the resources. Understand, Russia hasn't sent any new resources to the region. They're using aircraft on hand. Drones, I mean, there's no reason to divert drones. The drone units that are involved, I mean, what drones are we talking about? The tactical drones, they're down at the battalion, brigade level. The Army drones, the Orlans and others that are providing support there, they belong to those units. They're not assets to be plugged and unplugged. And there's been no diversion of these drones to Syria. The geranium, the Iran, they haven't been diverted. What drone diversion has there been to Syria? Right now, the Russian Air Force is flying. Russia had 30-plus aircraft at their air base there, and these airplanes are flying nonstop. They may get reinforced by, maybe another squadron's worth of aircraft, but there's been no meaningful diversion of resources. They sent a general, they sent, some more bombs, but on the battlefield in Ukraine, the Russian army keeps advancing, and they're using drones on the battlefield. There's been no, I don't know, this is just propaganda. This is 100% propaganda. There's no evidence whatsoever that Russian operations, on the line of contact, either in Kursk, in Kharkov, or in the Donbass, have suffered because of the Syrian, crisis.
Liebe Zuschauer, wenn euch unsere Beiträge gefallen, teilt sie unbedingt in den sozialen Medien. Abonniert unseren Kanal und drückt auf die Glocke, damit ihr keine Veröffentlichung von Gegenpol verpasst.